And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection, with your host, Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Tsimshian people. Industry-specific terminology, anagrams, and illustrations and trades function much like shorthand, enabling professionals to convey technical details swiftly and effectively. For example, PPE is a common abbreviation for personal protective equipment. On today's Open Connection, we rejoin the Nation to Nation panel discussion supporting women in trades.
I thought to myself, why couldn't you just say that? I'm brand new. It's my first year. I don't know what the lingo or, the shortened versions or the nicknames or whatever mean. So it always stuck with me to make sure that when I'm trying to teach somebody something, or when I have somebody who's brand new, to take yourself out and put yourself in their shoes, and everything is unknown to you and everything is scary. And especially if you're an adult going into a trade 10 years after you graduate from high school, or just something you've never been involved with before, never heard of before, to put yourself in their shoes and remember how scary that is for somebody who has no idea what you're asking them or what you're talking about. And have some grace with that person and make sure that you teach them just like you had to learn, right? Tell them the right name of the tool, or take the time to show them before you start telling them to go grab this, go grab that, and whatever else. And it used to be a fun thing for back in the day, we'll say. The journey person they used to call it hazing. It's kind of like in the college where they would, send you on these weird little journeys to go get this, go get that. And they'd call it some weird thing. And you'd be off to the warehouse asking for a sky hook. And the guy behind the counter is like, what are you talking about? Or a cable stretcher or some kind of weird, but you didn't know whether it was real or not. So having just taking that step back and imagining it's almost like teaching your child something. Nobody's born knowing everything. And so if you can just have that time and slow down a little bit and just be really thorough with teaching them and giving them the basics, that person's going to flourish and learn all kinds of things and probably come back to you when they have questions, because you're not treating them like they should know everything already. So I think that's really important to make sure that you have that. And then as far as women in trades, I think we need to keep pushing and keep teaching our girls. Someone said to me, I learned about a month or so ago, during International Women's Day, we had a speaker come to LNG Canada. And one of the things that she said to me was that little girls form their opinion of what they want to be when they grow up around the age of 11. And it really hit home with me the fact that we often don't talk about careers until grade 11, or when you're in your last year of high school. That's when your career counselor, they start talking about, okay, what do you want to do when you finish school? Where do you want to go? But it's almost 8 years too late, 7 years too late. We need to come back lower in the ages and the grades and start talking to kids about the opportunities and the options that they have, and not just letting them not hear that until they get to grade 12. When they're 11 years old and they're starting to think about what they want to be when they grow up, that's when that's happening, when that magic is happening. And if you can tap into that and get in there and be like, hey, do you know what an instrument technician does? Of course they don't. But if you show them controls, robotics, all the things that are really cool right now for kids, my trade is part of that. And that's what you learn, how something works. How do you control something? How do you control a process? How do you make sure it's doing what it's supposed to be doing and that end product is coming out the way it's supposed to be? That's instrumentation and control. And there's a lot of kids who are very interested in programming something or making a robot, pick little doohickeys up and move them around. Those are the kids that will excel in controls jobs in the future. So if we can get in there at that younger age and just be part of that, and the more we can spread that interest or spark that interest, the more variety of people we can have join. And then of course we have more support. If there's more females and more kids that get exposed to that come up and join into the trades, we will have our village. And then we have our support system, and it'll just keep on going from there, and it'll just grow itself, I think.
I love that. And I've also read that young girls and women don't often get their hands on tools very often. And if they can have tools from a young age and just work with their hands a little bit more and be around that, they're much more likely to succeed in skilled trade careers. So buy your daughters tools.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. An apprentice is a paid worker who operates under the guidance of a certified journey person to acquire the necessary skills for their trade. Roughly 80% of the time is dedicated to hands-on work, while 20% is allocated for technical training. Let us return to the panel discussion with Nicole.
I like to say that assumptions makes an ass out of you and me. Just because why would I assume that any one of you doesn't know what a hammer is? Why would I assume that you don't know how to use this drill? Because if I don't give you the chance to show me what you do know, how am I supposed to help you in what you don't know? And I think that something that I am privileged to be a part of was when I was in my Women in Trades program, there was like a day that we basically did a crash course for girls in trades training camp or something like that. And basically it was anyone from the ages of, I want to say like 8 or 9 to like 12 or 14. And we basically just gave them these little things to do in the workshops and kind of, build a birdhouse or cut some, I think it was like some steel or whatever it was. I forget now, but it was nice to see, like you get all these people in high school or people in grade school and they come together and they try all these things like how do you properly hold this tool? How does this tool actually work? Look at the things that you can create with just, a couple of things. So I think in that sense, that was kind of my mentoring these little girls. In my experience of other people mentoring me, I think it's a struggle. I think that unfortunately, like Heather had said, we're still in that kind of transitioning stage, unfortunately, where, like people don't want women around in the workplace, or people think that, hey, like this job's just easier for you to do because you can't lift as much as I can, or you can't, do this or that. Well, I'm the smallest person on the crew and I can actually get over there, and I have tiny little hands, so I can actually do that. So really, I'm an asset. So I don't know. But yeah, so I mean, it's I think it's still a process. I am fortunate enough to have a couple good mentors. I have one that to this day I text and call almost every single day, and I'm like, okay, this was what I did today at work and I still don't understand it. Can you help me with this? And he's like, yeah, I got you. Sends me pictures. We're drawing things on this Zoom call, and I'm like, okay, this all makes sense now. Why couldn't someone just take that 2 minutes even at work to just be like, hey, okay, do you still get this, or is it still confusing to you? And I mean, I think it's just a process. Everyone, we're always we're human, so we're always learning, we're always trying to get better at something. But I think we're so quick to sometimes just say, yeah, I understand that, but do you?
Something that I kind of try and take to the workplace more is the psychological safety aspect of a workplace for everyone, not just women. But now that we're seeing more women in trades and stuff like that, I often will say, hey guys, we've got our physical safety down pat. Everyone knows that they got to put on that orange vest, put on that hard hat, wear those steel-toed boots, or else you're off the site. So why are we not encouraging mental health and psychological safety in our toolkits as well? So every time I'm on a site that I'll say, hey, so when you guys do your toolbox meetings, when do you bring in mental health? When do you bring in the psychological safety, to repeat it again, so that everyone feels safe and comfortable and there's a safe space for someone, and women in particular? Why are we just ignoring it that there's 2 women standing in the corner by themselves? What's going to make them feel safe? How are we going to do that? So that's what I really, really want to encourage people as well to remember, that we have to make changes in all of the aspects of the workplace. We have our toolbox meetings. We need in our toolbox other things, more things as well, besides the tools, besides the hard hats, besides those steel-toed boots. And there's courses out there. There's federal courses that people can take. It's called mental health first aid. There's a lot of other courses that I can't think of off the top of my head right now, but that's available to everyone across Canada. And they have a website. We have a facilitator personally for CLAC, which we're quite proud of. So we take that to the workplace, and we encourage employers and members to be able to take that. And that gives them those extra tools in their tool belt so they can make sure that everyone is feeling safe and everyone has an opportunity to work together.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. Love like you'll never be hurt, sing like nobody's listening, and live like it's heaven on earth. Inspirational quotes serve as a powerful source of positivity that can swiftly change your mindset, provide hope and affirmation, and ignite fresh perspectives, ultimately enhancing your motivation and self-confidence. Let us return to conversation with Nicole.
So there's 3 things that always resonate whenever I'm doing something in any day, time, whatever. I guess you could call them quotes. I call them phrases of life. So the first one is, life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it. And I strongly believe that is something that I do every single day. Life is going to throw at you whatever it's going to throw, but how you perceive it and how you react to it and how you change that, or how you okay, that was kind of not so great, so how can I come back from this? How can I continue? The second one is, sometimes when people you wanted as part of your story are only meant to be a chapter. And I feel like especially my apprenticeship, there are so many jobs that I've taken that I'm like, this is going to be it. This is going to be the one. Here I am, probably like 7 jobs later. But you also, like, even just people that you surround yourself with, people that you thought you were friends with, or, for that time of your life were friends and were really close to, but now you've grown out of that stage. You've moved on in life, partners, family members, like all these things, you want them to be a part of your entire journey, but they're literally just this little part that continues on. And it's not, whether it's a bad thing, whether it's a good thing, I think is just great that you continue to grow and to not let that little bit kind of hold you back. Or like, if I took that away, would I still be here? If I didn't do this, would I still have succeeded in this? And the third is, I guess basically what I just said. If you erase all the mistakes you made in your past, would you also erase all the wisdom of your present? Remember the lesson, not the disappointment.
Something that I always think about is don't let anybody tell you what you can or can't do or take your power away. You're 100% responsible for how you react to something, or how you control your emotional response to something that someone says or does to you. Even though the words can hurt, they can't control that person can't control how you feel about that. So don't let anybody do that to you. If someone tells you can't do something, tell them, watch me, because you don't get anywhere if you don't go outside of your comfort zone. If it's not uncomfortable and really stressful and weird, it's not worth it. Like, you really need to kind of push ahead and take those challenges, look at those challenges head on and just nail them. I had a supervisor say to me one time, every time he came to me and said, hey, there's a problem over in this area of the plant, can you go take a look? I'd be like, yeah, sure. And I'd grab my bag and go. And one day he said to me, you never say no. And I said, because what would I do if I said no? I won't learn anything. I won't go out there. Yeah, I'm terrified. I haven't been in that area for a long time. I don't actually know what I'm going to do when I get there, but I'm going to think about it on the way. And when I get there, I'm going to figure it out. I see every challenge that comes to me as like a puzzle. I got to figure this out. I got to go through it, and I'm going to figure it out. And I have the skills to do that in my trade. And every time I was successful. So never let anybody tell you you can't. The other thing I want to say is let your kids be why kids. My mom and dad always said to me, you were the why kid. Everything that came out of your mouth was why mom, why dad, why does that do that? Why does that do that? How does that work? How does this happen? I probably drove them insane, but I would not be where I am today if they told me to stop asking. So let your kids be why kids and talk to your girls. Talk to your kids, talk to your grandkids, talk to your nieces, talk to your girls and tell them that trades are an option for them. Any job that anybody can do is an option for them. Help them grow that, help them go in that direction, and don't ever say, oh, I don't think you can do that, or you might not like that. Who cares? Whatever they're telling you they want to do, or whatever they say they want to do, encourage them, let them go. You never know what they're going to discover that they're super good at, that you might have had reservations for them about. Don't have the reservations. Don't take their power, and don't let anyone take your power.
I was doing a study about retention in trades, and one of the sort of theories that we talked about was Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You know, things like your physical safety and your psychological safety and your health and your family's well-being and all of those things. Those needs need to be met before you can really thrive in your career, like the self-actualization part of it. So I think that's those supports, those wraparound supports that, you know, the industry is starting to provide for women is important to get to that point. How PPE is designed for men. It's not designed for women's bodies, personal protective equipment, right? And there's so few women in the trades that it's very expensive to buy specialty PPE that's designed for women's bodies. So even having like government subsidies for women's specialized work boots and coveralls and things like that, will help us do better in our jobs when we don't have to worry about those basic needs anymore, right?
Something as simple like being in the trades, like just that transition from journeyman to journey person, just even as simple as that, and being able to, you know, like she said, advocate and correct that kind of behavior or that, you know, kind of speech, if you will, I think goes a long way, because like you said, we can say it all day long, but no one really does anything. So I think just something as simple as that too can always go a long way.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Conventional gender roles refer to society norms and expected behaviors linked to an individual's sex. Historically, these roles have designated women as caregivers and homemakers, while men have been seen as providers and protectors. Although these roles can differ from one culture to another, they typically encompass various expectations regarding appearance, family dynamics, and professional paths. In this final segment of Open Connection, Nicole shares her thoughts on gender roles.
As you can see, I am who I am. I dress how I want to dress. I say I have a triple whammy because of my sexuality. I'm half Asian. I'm a woman, so I have a lot of things that unfortunately add more to my, I guess, persona. The biggest thing is, for the longest time, I had to fight for the recognition of being a female because I dress the way I do. And as much as I would like to think that I could just change it, it's who I am. And thank you. I think that, like, you are gonna be who you are. Like, I've been who I am for as long as I can, and I'm not gonna change that just because you don't like it. And I think that a big part of it is just accepting yourself for who you are and not having to change that for anyone's, I guess, perspective of you. I know that Heather has fought a lot for our PP and like having women's PP, which I love, but a person like me who has size 11 men's feet and has broad shoulders and long torso, long arms, I fit better in men's clothing. And I wish there was an outlet for me that also accommodated, my bigger hips, my front chest, like things like that, which I love that you're doing. And I love that the team is doing. But I think, like, why am I going to change who I am for someone that is probably this big to me? Like, I want to be accepted for me. And if I find that if people have a problem with that, it shows their character, not yours. And I think that the biggest thing that I have found is that people always have something to say about me and always have something to poke and prod at because they're intimidated by me. And I think that's the biggest thing that some people don't understand is, why is this person making fun of me because of the way I dress, because of the way I act, because of the way I do this? It's because they have something about them that they don't like. Maybe it's those things that they're poking and prodding at you that they don't like about themselves, and the only way that they know how to accept it or to be okay with it is to make fun of someone else or to bring that other person down so it makes them feel better.
I always say, just be who you are. It doesn't matter. My friend's son, when he was about 8 years old, they live in Prince Rupert, and for some reason, he just took a liking to me. And so he would ask, hey, can I come down and stay the weekend and whatever? And I'm, yeah, sure, come on down. So he came down, and this kid, when he was really young, he preferred to play with like Barbie dolls or baby dolls. And so some of the friends in our group were like, oh, I think Joey is gay or whatever. And I was like, who cares? He came to my house one day and he wanted me to, he brought his laptop. He was, I think, 9 or 10 at the time. He wanted me to open up this, I can't remember the name of the character, but it was a character, but they do like fashion. Like they get to pick all the fashions and, dress up this doll online and whatever. And the first thing he said to me when he opened it up and asked me, he's like, can you go to this website? I want to do this. Can you open it for me, Auntie? Because he's called me Auntie. And he said, but I'm not gay. And I looked at him and I said, Joey, I said, it doesn't matter what you like to do. You do whatever you like to do. Nobody cares about what you like to do except for you. Don't ever let anybody, and I had said it earlier, don't ever let anybody take that power from you. You are who you are. You're exactly where you're supposed to be, and you do everything exactly the way it's meant to be for you. And don't ever let any of that ever bother you. And he's a young man now, and he is his own person. He dresses however he wants to, and he still reminds me of that day, which was now probably like 13 years ago. And he still says, do you remember that time you said that to me? He goes, I've never forgotten that. And I just thought, like, if I can make one thing to help one person feel better about themselves, no matter who they are, just be yourself. Just be who you are. Dr. Seuss has a saying that those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. And that's the truth. Your people will love you no matter what. If your people don't love you, or if there's people that don't love you, who cares?
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.